What's up everybody, raid testing back on the menu, and today we're taking a look at heroic Painsmith Raznal in the new raid Sanctum of Domination. Keep in mind this is not a guide on how to do the fight, as it is very early testing, things will change, some things aren't working properly, so this is merely to give y'all a taste of what to expect. One phase fight with intermissions based on health percentage with an alternating tank mechanic after every intermission. Take note that the room is very square based because a lot of mechanics are based on these squares. So for the tank smash we have Rippling Hammer, Cruciform Axe and Dual Blade Scythe. Now all three of these say Raznal hurls his either hammer, axe or scythe after 6 seconds, inflicting 50k fist damage to the target and 33k fire damage to all other players, reduced by distance. The part that change is the following: spikes ripple outwards from the target's location, or spikes erupt in 4 directions from the detonation point, or spikes erupt in 4 directions and then ripple outwards from the detonation point. And this is based off at what part of the fight you're in. So before first intermission, after, etc, etc. It also applies blackened armor, which deals ticking fire damage and increases physical damage taken by 200% for 36 seconds. So that's your tank swap mechanic. Now the erupting spike part. When Painsmith throws his weapon on the tank, a ton of spikes will erupt in different patterns based on which weapon he throws. The first one starts off filling the square around the tank that gets hit and then ripples outwards, growing in size every tick, if you will, until it's gone through the entire encounter space. Next weapon will erupt spikes in a few big lines going out from the detonation point, and last weapon I assume is just a combination of the 2 previous ones, where it fires off a couple of big lines and then just ripples out from the detonation point. Now, if you get hit by one of these spikes, you take around 30k physical damage and you get stunned for 2 seconds. However, these spikes will also interact with another mechanic, which is the Flame Clasp Trap, which marks several players, and after 8 seconds, or supposedly 8 seconds, they drop a trap at their location. If you step on a trap, it detonates, dealing raid-wide damage and increases damage taken by subsequent trap detonations by 100% for 3 seconds. However, if the spike from the tank mechanic hits a trap, it will detonate. Or if the next mechanic, called Spiked Balls, roll over a trap, they will also detonate. So you will have to drop traps in such a manner that you can manually detonate them before they get hit by X or Y mechanic, so you don't have multiple traps detonating at the same time. Now for the aforementioned Spiked Balls, a wave of spiked spheres or balls rolls across the floor. If you get hit by one, you take like 160k damage, and you get stunned for 8 seconds if you manage to live it. Now for this one, I am personally a bit unsure how this mechanic is intended to work for a few reasons. The most obvious way to deal with it is to DPS one of them down, which leaves a gap that you can pass through. However, sometimes some orbs were offset or became offset as the balls were rolling across the floor, and I can't say for certain if that was a bug or if you can somehow make that happen. Most likely a bug, because we couldn't find a way to replicate this on demand, but I might also just be dumb. Which happens a lot. But most likely, name of the game is nuke one down and pass through. You were able to immune and run through them, blink, teleport, etc. You could jump off the ledge and around them, if you will, as a demon hunter, or disengage as a hunter, for example, and even put a gateway at the very ledge, jump off, click gateway while you're off the platform and travel past them without getting hit. This one I personally hope they fix. On top of this, boss will also use Shadow Steel Chains, mark several players and after 6 seconds shackles them, dealing ticking damage for 20 seconds, but these players will also knock back and deal a large amount of fist damage to players within 40 yards. So they'd knock you into spiked balls, traps, or even off the ledge, which was not at all frustrating. Now when you bump the boss down to 70%, the first intermission starts. Boss jumps away and you now have to dodge more spikes. Lines of spikes will travel across the encounter space with 1 square gap in each line. Don't get spiked. So you have to keep running and trying to find a gap, get between the spikes, new spikes spawn, find a gap, run through them, etc. On top of this, the boss will use Shadow Steel Embers, aka red swirls, will spawn. Upon impact, an ad spawns and players hit by the impact also take a bit of fire damage. So avoid swirls, tank pick up ads, pads, and find safe gap in the spiky line. After a while, intermission ends, boss rejoins, and phase 1 restarts, but now the boss will use a different weapon, which means a different pattern of spikes will spawn after each tank smash. And that's pretty much it for this fight. It's a pretty interesting, albeit hectic fight, very healing intense, and seemed to have a very tight DPS check, with push timings and killing the big spiky balls in time so you don't get smooshed. I gotta say though, that it felt a little bit thrown together to me, and I based this purely off how buggy the fight was. That, and the fact that pretty much the entire dungeon journal for this fight has been changed since I last checked it. Previous iteration had spike balls that chased players that you had to DPS to knock them away, whilst making sure they were kited or knocked away from traps or walls. There was a maze during the intermission with traps and turrets you needed to reach, and a ton of other stuff. So it's a completely different fight now from what it looked like it was going to be. And I for one would have personally very much have enjoyed the old version, at least from how it sounded while reading the journal. Unsure why it was scrapped or changed, but it is what it is. But with some polishing, this will still be a very fun fight. I did enjoy trying it out, I just wish I could have tried the other version as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the first look. We'll cover all bosses on PTR, and proper guides will be out once the raid is released. On top of this, I am streaming all of the raid testing on PTR, so don't forget to check that out whenever there's raid testing announced. Otherwise, I'm streaming all of our main progression once it's live on Mondays and Tuesdays. Now, if you have any questions at all about this encounter, hit me up in the comments or become a patron and get access to the Stankie Discord, where you can get help with anything raiding or progress related. Don't forget the usual stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.